Welcome to Legislative Report. I'm Anthony Tezak. Pennsylvania's government has been in the business of selling wine and liquor since the end of Prohibition, nearly 80 years ago. The House advanced legislation this week that would privatize state stores and bring the sale of wine and spirits into the 21st century. Here to talk to me about this and other measures before the General Assembly is State Representative Ryan Mackenzie. Representative Mackenzie, welcome.
Anthony, thanks for having me back.
Now, this week is a big week here at the State House. Again, we're making some, unprecedented moves, getting ready to put out a liquor bill that would get the government out of a private business. Where are we?
Yeah, so, the liquor sales in Pennsylvania, we're one of only 2 states in the country that has a monopoly on the sale of alcohol. And so it's us and Utah. And it's something that I think is long overdue for Pennsylvania to get out of the business. And really, it's partially a belief in government and what its role should be, but also at the same time, when you look at the responsibilities of the Pennsylvania Liquor Control Board, it was started as a department, an agency that was tasked with regulating the sale of alcohol. And now at the same time, we have individuals who are trying to pump up the sale of alcohol, increase the sale of alcohol, saying we can generate more profits off of that. Again, it's probably not government's responsibility to be doing that in the first place, but now also you have a conflicted agency there. They're trying to regulate, enforce, reduce the acts of alcoholism in our state, and then at the same time they're trying to promote the sale of alcohol. So a real conflicted mission for that agency, and so I think, again, long overdue for us to sell it. We have to do it responsibly. We have to make sure that it makes business sense, makes sense for the community. So there are a lot of considerations that go into it, and as mentioned, we've taken that up in the House, and now we're going to be looking to the Senate for their action as well.
Now, last session, a bill very similar to this, Speaker Turzai's bill, it did get through the House, stalled in the Senate. This year, got a large majority in the Senate, much larger majority in the House. However, we don't have a Republican in the governor's mansion. And Governor Wolf has already said he doesn't support privatization, he supports modernization. What is modernization, and why is that not going to work?
Yeah, so, modernization is one of these funny things. There was a member who recently, a House member who recently said, well, he doesn't like privatization because he thinks it expands the points of sale of alcohol too far, and he's concerned with those increased points of access. And I understand that concern. Again, as I mentioned, we have to do it responsibly. But at the same time, his proposal is modernization, and modernization includes increasing store hours, having lottery sales be done in the store to attract more people into the stores, trying to do things to bring down the costs of alcohol sales by doing increased negotiation and leverage tactics against the people who are selling the alcohol to us in the first place. So, all the things that they're trying to do in modernization are trying to increase the sale of alcohol, and they say that will in turn drive up our profits in Pennsylvania, and that's going to be a good thing for the budget. To me, that sounds like you're increasing access and sale of alcohol. So I don't think they're achieving their mission there. And so really, again, I think our approach is better, and hopefully we're going to see the Senate act. Now, I'm sure the Senate is going to have their own ideas on what they would like to see done there, and that's part of the process. I understand that. So hopefully they'll be able to pass something as well, and then we can reconcile our differences and hopefully get something the governor that he can actually take a look at and hopefully sign into law.
Now, in the day and age of openness and transparency in government, why is it necessary to shift the sale of liquor out of the hands of PLCB, and why has it taken this long? And you mentioned as far as an agency conflicted. I mean, to me, that seems as far from transparent and open as you can get.
Yeah, again, it's not good government in my opinion, and so hopefully we will be able to get away from that. As for why it's taken so long, I don't have a good answer for that. I've been here about 2 or 3 years now, and I've seen the challenges in government. This is no exception to that. And again, hopefully with the House's action, though, we've been able to take a positive step to reform government, and hopefully the Senate will do the same.
Now, moving on to another topic, as of the day of this taping, we are less than 1 week from Governor Wolf's first budget address. And obviously liquor plays into the budget address, but another big piece of the budget pie is pension. We tried to get some bills passed last year through the House. We weren't able to get anything signed. Where do we stand on the pension crisis?
Yeah, so pensions are far and away our most significant challenge in Pennsylvania. And the reason I say that is because the effects and the impacts of our pension crisis are so far-reaching. The pensions, it's a $50 billion unfunded liability. When you compare that to our annual state budget of about $29 billion, that shows you the magnitude of the problem. In terms of paying that off, we see increased costs every year going up by several $100 million. Next year it's going to be about $600 million increase to that cost. And what that does is that takes away revenue, tax revenue, which could have gone towards education, could have gone towards in helping those in need. And so there are lots of good programs out there in government that do the right things and the real core responsibilities of government. But this pension problem and the increase in costs are eating away at those other programs. And so it's also driving up taxes at the property tax level, at the school district level. And so really, again, you see the far-reaching problems in terms of paying that off. And so, the governor recently said that his opinion, our biggest problem was low self-esteem in Pennsylvania. That's crazy. I mean, clearly, pensions are our most significant problem. And again, because it affects education, it affects all other government programs, it affects property taxes. It's such a far-reaching problem. We have to address it. And so there are a number of proposals out there to start addressing that problem. And really, when you look at it, you have to break it down into 3 different categories: new employees who have not yet started, current employees, current retirees. It's always important to note no changes for current retirees. That's something that I think needs to be cleared up right away.
And that is a big problem or any opponents of the pension issue, that's what they're very concerned about. But I just want to emphasize again,
absolutely.
There's no risk.
No changes for current retirees and their benefits. So that should be very clear to everybody. The most significant changes are certainly around new employees. And I think that's a crucial first step. You need to close that gate for new employees coming in, and then you can really start wrapping your arms around the problem. So for new employees, we're really looking at 3 different proposals right now. Currently, they're in defined benefit plans, so a pension plan where they pay in a contribution, and then at the end, they're guaranteed a certain level of benefits based on the number of years of service, their final 3 years average salary, and also a multiplier. And so that's the current plan. The new proposals out there, again, I mentioned there are 3 of them. One is for a full 401k shift, so complete or similar to a 401k, so a total shift where it's on the individual in a defined contribution plan. And then there are also 2 and even a couple extras which are smaller in nature that are really hybrid plans where it's partially defined benefit, partially defined contribution. Still a step in the right direction, but hopefully one of those will really make a change for new employees so that in the future the system is manageable and sustainable. And then again, we can wrap our arms around that $50 billion problem, figure out how we're going to pay it off. It's a liability that we have. We're responsible to pay it off, so we just need to figure out how to manage that responsibly.
Now again, as of the this taping, we're less than 1 week from the governor's budget address. But obviously rumors are swirling around the Capitol. If the governor decides to push this issue off and decides not to deal with it this year, what's the danger of that scenario?
Yeah, so look, I mean, there are 3 options to deal with the pension crisis in Pennsylvania. The first is pension reform. I think it's the best option. We've talked about that. The second is massively cutting other government service programs. We've already done some significant changes to our budget that have really focused on responsibilities, and so I think there's less room in that area. And then the third option is massive tax increases, and I think that's what we're going to hear from the governor. It's what we're already hearing the rumblings of, and so I think that's just completely the wrong way to go. When you look at Pennsylvania and our taxation rates at the state and local government level, the Tax Foundation, an organization, national, bipartisan, nonpartisan organization, has said that we're the 10th highest state taxed in the country. And so I don't think we need to increase taxes more on our taxpayers, and that's what is being proposed, and I just think it's the wrong approach.
Now, when you were first elected, you came in a time when government reform was a big issue, and we've spoke previously as far as how important that is to you, and you introduced a new piece of legislation to ensure tax dollars are not being, say, misappropriated by tax collectors. What's the bill? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so House Bill 160 this session, it would prohibit tax collectors from notifying individuals that they should make checks payable to the name of the tax collector, and then also changing the way that those payments are handled and deposited into the appropriate account. And so let me back up a second and really start with the problem. And the problem is that across Pennsylvania right now, tax collectors can have individuals who are paying typically their property taxes be made out to the name of the tax collector. And so you see this in our area. The options are that it can be made out to Lower Mackenzie Township, or it can just be made out to the name of the tax collector. And you know, thankfully, we have a good tax collector in Lower Mackenzie Township, but across the state, we've seen lots of instances where tax collectors, when they receive those checks made out in their individual name, they go to the bank, they steal the money, and they deposit by depositing it into their personal account. And the bank doesn't know. Obviously, the name on the check's the same as the name on the personal account, and the money is gone. And so just today, we saw an instance was reported in York County where a tax collector stole $300,000 from her municipality. And the way that it was done was, again, checks were made out to her name, deposited personally. The U.S. attorney stated very clearly that that was the problem. And so we're trying to collect that by changing the way the accounts are set up in the first place, and then making the corresponding change saying that, okay, now payments can only be made out to the account, the name on the account. And so the examples would be that instead of having the tax collector's name on the account as a standalone title, it would just be made out to Lower Mackenzie Tax Collector. And so it would be made out in the name of the office, their title, the position, or the municipality. And so in that way, you're going to cut down on this portion of the fraud that's occurring, and we hear about it all the time. I've been trying to make the change since last session. I amended it to another bill, but the Senate took it out. And so this session, we have a standalone bill, and hopefully we're going to get it through the process and really stop this problem.
And we only have a little under a minute left, but we're less than 2 months into the new session. You've already been busy. You also introduced another piece of legislation in regards to career bound. Can you briefly tell us about that?
Absolutely. So this is another good piece of legislation which I've reintroduced since last session, trying to strengthen career awareness for our middle school and high school students. And you know, what happens with legislation is every 2 years the clock resets, and so anything that didn't make it all the way through the process, the House passing it, the Senate passing the same bill and getting signed by the governor, you have to start over. And so we have some good ideas that just didn't make it all the way through the process, so we're going back, and I think we have a very good shot of getting things done this session.
All right, Representative Mackenzie, thanks for taking out the time today. I know you're extremely busy, and the next couple of weeks should be very interesting, and I look forward to talking with you about the budget address.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for having me, Anthony.
We're out of time, but to learn more about Representative Mackenzie's efforts to strengthen education, protect taxpayers, protect our state's most vulnerable citizens, and work to make Pennsylvania a more attractive place for job creators, please visit his website. That information will be on your screen in just a moment. Thanks for joining us, and be sure to tune in next time for another edition of our Legislative Report.